I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a lamp, so I wasn't sure if that's possible.
It's a chandelier. It's a chandelier.
Oh. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Picking Brains 01, although we have kind of done this before. We haven't had such esteemed royalty as we have this week on our podcast. Yeah, he's looking at, yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, Picking Brains is a new cast through our Twitch streaming channel where... Hang on, I'm getting some feedback. It's a good start. No? Okay, good. Where we are going to invite people from the scare industry to come and chat between industry professionals about all topics within the scare industry. And also we're going to give you an insight into zombie infection and how we go about scaring our guests every week. This week is probably the biggest week to begin this type of broadcast because we are in the midst of obviously the biggest virus outbreak of the 21st century. We're joined by Mr. Michael Bolton up here. Here he is. Say hi, Michael.
Time, love and tenderness. Oh, sorry, wrong Michael Bolton.
Oh, I've been trying to avoid that. On all of the posts, yeah.
Live with me for the rest of my life, even though I am the original Michael Bolton, and he was actually his is a stage name. So there we go.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Do you know what his real name is?
Michael Bolito.
Oh, okay. There you go then. He just stole your name. Who was born first?
Him. I'm not that old.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. Michael is the creator and owner of ScareTour, the UK's most extensive scare industry review organisation, spanning almost 20 years. I read on the website.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
I also read that you have designed and co-ran some of the most acclaimed industry attractions, such as Ghost of Christmas in Glasgow. How long ago was that?
Oh, that was about 8 years ago, maybe.
Okay. And worked with Primeval to expand their offering with 2 new mazes in your past.
I helped design Primeval. In fact, their logo they use at the moment is the logo that I created for them. And I even came up with the name Primeval for a dinosaur park.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Awesome.
But let's not forget that he has also acted in a number of high-profile attractions, such as Frightmare, which I didn't know. We went to Frightmare last year.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got? The London Tombs. What did you do in the Tombs?
We've helped out quite a number of times. We know the people there, so we quite often we go down, and you might just suddenly find a certain zombie jumping out on you, and it's likely to be me.
Amazing. And this one I was particularly interested in. Overseas in Florida as part of the Bloodworth Haunted House attraction.
Yes, I was over in Florida for... God, you have been doing your homework, haven't you? I was over in Florida to visit all the scare attractions, and there was a local... It was a home haunt. It was a very large home haunt, and they wanted someone with an English accent. So I went and worked for a few nights and had an absolute blast.
How does that differ from like ours? How does that... I assume there's more smaller pop-ups over there than...
They're haunts. They call them haunts over there. We call them scare attractions. They have a lot of large established houses. I mean, this guy had taken over his whole house. It was like a 1-level, quite big house in Florida, but everything from the garage, the garden, indoors. I mean, there was like a maze built through his lounge, and you could see the sofa and the TV and stuff like that were there. But when people went through with the lights off, they didn't know where they were walking. They just followed the walls through. And his wife just put up with him doing this. And he took everything about 2 months of the year, every year.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Were you over there on holiday, or did you go over specifically to do that job?
I was on holiday, but I worked with them for a few months and did a number of things. I worked through the mazes, was a roaming character, did a lot of queue line entertainment. Yeah, it was really good fun.
Amazing. But we know Michael, I guess, as Michael from ScareTour, the gentle giant who gives us all each week to promote the scare industry attractions of all sizes across the UK and Europe, let's not forget, with his faithful sidekick Sam. Hey, Sam.
Yep. Don't know where he is in Ireland at the moment.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay.
Yep.
In quarantine.
No, he might be though. But it's not just ScareTour. Obviously, you're going to mention ScareCon as well. I hope.
I am literally just about to. Together with his support of the wider team at your ScareTour, they produce ScareCon, Europe's largest scare industry conventions and awards ceremony, which we are all proud to attend every year. It's a fantastic
and you
event.
have won in the past, haven't you?
We have, yeah, and we absolutely loved winning it. As you can probably tell with our reaction, that the guys continue to play over and over again. But it's a great pleasure to have you with us on our first Picking Brains cast. So a little bit of background for those of you that don't know who we are. So we have Charlie in the top left. She's one of our lead actresses at Zombie Infection, and Meg, she's one of our top zombies at Zombie Infection. My name is Greg and I am the owner of Zombie Infection. We are the largest provider of zombie experiences in the UK, purely because of the number of sites that we have and the amount of sites that we run every weekend, although we're not running any at the moment.
Yikes.
We have multiple channels. This is one of them. We set up our Twitch streaming channel around 3 or 4 months ago, Charlie.
This Twitch channel, it's actually coming up to almost half a year now.
Fantastic. This is just a chance for, these channels are just a chance for us to give you an insight into us as a community and some insight into how we run our events and what we do, and just to get to know us really, to continue kind of your journey with ZI. And the reason why we wanted to do the Picking Brains cast is because we really want to raise some of the larger and bigger questions within the scare industry and the wider industries, the wider entertainment industries, really. And this is the first of many interviews that we're hopefully going to have on this Picking Brains podcast. So we're going to do roughly once a week with different members of our team and obviously different people that we're going to interview. The reasons for this podcast is we want to, as I said, address some real concerns in the industry at the moment. We're part of the leisure industry and events industry, as you can imagine, as most of scare attractions are. And although that most scare attractions kind of pop up in October time and they run, around Halloween, there are a number of us that run scare attractions all year round. Michael will probably have more of an extensive list than I do. And obviously the coronavirus has hit the leisure industry as a whole pretty hard, of which we are a part of. So we want to discuss today just how much this has affected our business and as well as our friends and colleagues in the scare industry. So without further ado, I think if we get stuck into how this has affected the scare industry, Michael, and in your view, what has been the most damaging aspect, I guess, of the COVID-19 outbreak?
I think probably the most damaging thing has been the lack of certainty over what's actually been going on. Obviously, we all started watching it from afar in China. I think we all thought, it wasn't going to impact us, or we'd just have to be a little bit careful. Once it started growing and growing very quickly, I think nobody quite knew what was going to happen, whether we would have to be shut down. I've got an event in May, and I was thinking, we'll be done, it'll blow over by then, and suddenly we're now at a stage 2 weeks later where we're on complete and utter lockdown. We can't do anything, and I think that uncertainty covers across the whole spectrum. So if you've got a scare attraction who's about to spend a lot of money on a new maze this year, well, most scare attractions are a part of something else, like a farm attraction or a theme park. So you can imagine Alton Towers and Fort Park, they've had to close. They're going to lose a lot of money. I've seen online videos. I'm not going to say which attraction, but an owner of a family attraction that holds a very good scare event each at Halloween, almost in tears, just saying we're going to have to close down. Nobody's coming, and if we have a quarantine and nobody comes to us for Easter, we are going to have no money, which means our business will close down, which means we won't even be able to do a Halloween event. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's obviously one thing that's quite clear is people. I think this industry isn't very cash rich. Um, People don't make a huge amount of money from it. A lot of people, I know events that don't actually spend a lot on their attraction, but what basically they only make what they earn, only make enough to cover their costs. People aren't getting very rich out of this industry. As we know, there are a few big players, but a lot of people do it for the love and the money. Love, not the money.
Yeah.
And I think there's a massive uncertainty until recently. The government has stepped in and started to make more assurances about safety of income, but some of these people are self-employed doing this stuff, and we don't really know. So it's just uncertainty. I think it's going to damage this year the industry across the whole.
Because I suppose, yeah, I didn't really think about the fact that we ourselves were actually looking at sort of expanding our offering and doing something at Easter. I assume that actually a lot of the scare industry organisations actually have other arms to their business that aren't scare focused, that they do run at Easter and through the summer, that do then prop up their October offering.
Absolutely. Most of, some of the big parks, so you could say Tully's, Shottoberfest, you could say Fear at Avon Valley, Screamfest Burton, they're all built at farm attractions. So they're the sort of places where people go to with their kids and they watch sheep being born, and they go on a fun hayride and whatever, and they have a great summer. And this would be, Easter coming up would be an amazing time for them to get some money. Ironically, the weather's turned nice, so people should be out and about. People should be going out and doing things, and getting that buffer of that good money over Easter and going into a good summer is going to be really good for people. But you've got to remember that coronavirus has come straight after weeks and weeks of terrible storms. So lots of people have had damage, or had to close or not open because of flooding and whatever. So this has just come at the worst time. It's the worst thing that could have happened at the moment.
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. Thorpe Park weren't Thorpe Park about to open this week? I think it was scheduled to open this week.
We should have been at the press launch for their new maze tomorrow night. They were due to open Saturday. They would have had pass holder previews last week. I went to a staff preview of Chessington last week, and that was due to open last Saturday, and that didn't open. Obviously, Alton Towers is closed. So all of those places, obviously you can imagine how much money those big Merlin parks take. And okay, they haven't got to pay their. Well, I don't think they're paying their staff, because I'm sure a lot of people are on 0-hour contracts or whatever. I'm not too sure. Obviously, not confirming that, but they are going to lose a hell of a lot of money over this period.
I mean, I having worked at Thorpe Park for a season myself, I know the effort that they go to recruit. I mean, the kick on from that, surely. I mean, if their staff are going to have to, at some point, they're either going to have to delay just based on recruitment. I mean, trying to get enough people to work the attractions, if they are on 0-hour contracts and they're not therefore employed anymore, they're going to have to at least allow time to recruit a whole new team to run the park, surely.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we've all seen in the news, Tesco's are recruiting, Morrison's are recruiting.
Yeah.
Lots of people are volunteering to help do stuff in the NHS. People are getting jobs running medicine around, and it's going to be even harder for these attractions to get the staff, because staff will have either found another job, or they just won't be interested in taking something. Say if we get open again in June, if you've got because the parks are only open till October, that's only 6 months worth of work.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas in retail or somewhere like that, you can guarantee year-round work.
Yeah. I know that ScareTour, you have a lot of connections within Europe as well. How have you seen any difference in Europe, and have you been in communication with some of the similar types of brands, like the larger parks and things like that? I mean, they're obviously a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ahead of us. Were you in contact with them? Did they shut early? What was the sort of feeling from our European equivalents?
They certainly, I think, shut earlier and shut for longer. So one of the big theme parks in Spain is Portaventura. I mean, that announced weeks ago that they were going to be shut until I think about mid-May. I mean, it might even be early or late May. They shut for quite a long period. I think they had a lot more instruction from their government. Again, I don't want this to turn into a political discussion or a slating of any particular brand or company, but
Yeah.
I think over here there were a lot of people who were very sensible quite early on and said this is about to get really bad. We owe a duty to our staff and our public to shut down, and obviously people can guess obviously which company I'm talking about in the UK. There is one company that left it absolutely to the last minute, and I think they probably should have made the announcement earlier. I think there was an excuse of we're trying to keep things open to make sure our guests are happy, but I think there was an underlying line of well, let's try and make some more money out of this.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but yeah, certainly in Spain and France and whatever. The other difference is they had government orders to shut down. I
Right.
know I was talking to somebody in Holland who said a number of attractions tried to get around it by saying, if we're not allowed 50 people in one building at one space, why don't we have 50 people in the indoor queue, 50 people in the outdoor queue, 50 people in the second outdoor queue, and stagger people like that? And to be honest, the Dutch government just turned around and said, I'm not going to swear, but you can imagine what, just said, you are not
You
going
can
to do
swear,
that.
Michael. It's
So,
fine.
okay, don't don't try and pull our plonker. This is not going to happen. You were told to restrict large numbers, so they were just told to shut down.
Yeah.
And look at the dungeon attractions. Because it was a bad week last week, as I was reporting everything closing.
Yeah.
Berlin and Hamburg dungeons were closed under strict guidance from their governments told them they had to close.
Yeah.
Whereas London, York, and all the ones in the UK, they sort of bowed down under pressure at the end. They thought, well, we really have to. But France and Spain and whatever were actually told by their government, you have to close. A bit like the government said to us, close down restaurants, clubs, gyms, and whatever. Theme parks were included, and scare attractions were included in that.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously work with York Dungeons. York Dungeons is one of our venues for one of our experiences. So, I was surprised that I think a couple of the dungeons closed, but a couple were left open. I thought that was quite surprising that there wasn't some kind of unity across those.
No, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, from our point of view, like our venues, it's sort of, there's like a knock-on effect. So when with our venues, if our venues close before we do, that's it. And if we decide to close before they do, it's the same for them. So there's been this sort of, I mean, we have 7 or 8 venues across the country, and some of them closed before us and some of them closed after us. And it was just, well, if you're going, then and you're not going to obviously pay us the rent for the day's hire, then we're going to go, that's basically our nail as well. So it was a bit of a snowballing effect for us. I was surprised by the amount of public announcements when it came to closing everything. And I think that personally, I was a little bit surprised by how quick people were to jump on the public kind of social outlet. The way we did it is we have a list of everybody that's taking part in our events, and we emailed them all with a booking and explained to them the reasons why. Obviously, in the same reasons why everybody else had to cancel, we had to cancel our events. But yeah, there was a lot of, it sort of all happened within the space of 48 hours. There was a lot of sort of public posts that were going up, and I was a bit surprised that was the way that it was done. I guess we live in a very public domain, don't we? I guess, like, you're sort of, I don't like bowing to sort of peer pressure too much. So I was sort of, I was happy to let our customers know that they weren't going ahead in the way that we did it. and not sort of bow to peer pressure to put out some kind of public, announcement that we were doing it. Obviously, we put out things on our website about contact us if you have an event, and we were speaking to our customers, but there was a lot of public posts going out. So we've obviously seen a steady decline in closures. A kind of sort of rolling on from what I've just said, how do you feel that the industry has dealt with it? You said that obviously, I think specifically the smaller scare attractions and the parks and people like us and other zombie brands, and how do you feel like us as an industry have dealt with it?
I think for a lot of people, they're still hoping it might not necessarily impact them. You've got to remember the majority of this industry is closed down at the moment. There's not a lot going on. As you know, on ScareTour, we always big up the escape rooms and we big up the zombie events because it's something that can happen throughout the year. But the majority of events are in the September-October period. So I think everyone's sort of keeping their head down and just hoping that it's all blown over by then. I think what we're seeing is a lot of people really worrying about what it means for them. So going back to what I was saying earlier about attractions being not very cash rich, I know a couple of escape room experiences. So, we do a lot of horror themed escape rooms that we go to. But again, if they don't get any bookings for 2 months, they've still got rent to pay. They've still got potentially staff to pay. They're like any other company, but with no money coming in. So what a lot of them are doing is trying to offer deals at the moment. So I've seen deals like, well, why don't you if you buy a ticket now, we'll honor it for when we're open, but we'll give you 50% extra. So if you give us, I don't know, buy a £50 gift card, we'll allow you to redeem that for up to £75. I've seen other people saying, please book in advance. We'll be an open dated ticket and we'll give it to you whenever we can. And that's companies, over the uncertainty and not knowing what the government was going to pay, realizing that they were about to go under. And I do think that with all the measures that have been put in place, it's unprecedented. The amount that is actually being offered by the government, I think it will be too little too late for some people, and we will lose some attractions, which is heartbreaking, really, because it's not anybody's fault.
Do you think there's anything we can do as a community to support them? Yeah,
well, to give you an example, one thing we did, there was an attraction that we have visited a number of times, and full disclosure here, we visited them, and they've given us free tickets to go because we've gone and reviewed. That's one of the perks of running a review site and doing honest reviews and whatever. So the second they announced that they were potentially going to have to close, we just bought tickets. We just said, well, you know what, you've given us tickets in the past. Here you go, and we bought the equivalent tickets of what we've had before, just to help them out. I can't do that for everybody,
of course.
But it was a way of just helping them get over that next rent payment or whatever. But what I am seeing is some ingenious ideas where people are trying to get around it. So again, the escape rooms, which are quite unique, but rely on locking 6 people in a room. So quite a few people. So Room Escape Southend, who do a lot of horror themed rooms, they're launching tonight a online interactive version. So like we're Skyping and doing stuff at the moment, they're doing a version, and it's like one of the computer games we used to play in the 80s. You control a virtual person. Well, you actually control one of the operators. But you're on a Skype line, and you tell them to go to the blue corner, pick up this, put in code 445 in the combination, and it's a really good way of giving people something to do, because we're all bored in isolation. We're all bored stuck here, but keeping their business going. So I'm seeing more and more people reaching out for people to try and help them. The problem is, as we all know, there are a lot of people losing their jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty about money. So this is going to suppress the whole industry. Your event is very reasonably priced, but to somebody who's on a 0 hours contract, or maybe hasn't worked for 2 months, they're not going to be able to. The last thing they're going to focus on is, oh, can I go and have 2 or 3 hours running around a zombie
Yeah,
event
and
their family?
most of the refund requests that we've had have been from people saying, I've lost my job. I don't have £80 disposable income anymore. I need the money back. And of course, we'll completely honour that. But that, I'd probably say about half of the refund requests have come from customers saying that along those lines. Charlie, Meg.
A really interesting point on that, and I've had this with just to say I've had this with ScareCon. Obviously, I've had to hire Fort Park for ScareCon, so obviously I had to pay a lot of money to Fort Park. People have paid me a lot of money for ScareCon, and now it's like who's going to take the hit? So if I don't get the money back from Fort Park, but I refund everyone, I go bankrupt because I haven't got any money. If why in effect should Fort Park lose money? Why should I demand that money back? Because they had a contract in place, it's not their fault. And then why should anybody who's my customer lose the £80 they've spent on coming to ScareCon? So nobody's at fault. And I hear quite a few people say, oh, the large companies can afford it. I've had a few people say to me, well, Merlin can afford it. Well, Merlin are going to lose millions over this, and it's not anyone's fault. And we're all very quick to try and get a refund back. And I do understand it, but someone's got to remember, at the end of the day, this is nobody's fault. It's not like it's not like you've suddenly decided to close some section because you can't be bothered to do it anymore. That's your fault. You physically can't do it, but you could have been contracted to pay the venues and already paid them. So I think we just need to try and what we've tried to do with ScareCon, and I've seen a lot of events try to do, is like, we are unable to do a refund, but we are going to reschedule. We will honour your thing. Rest assured, the event is going to take place at some point. We would appreciate you bearing with us because we haven't got the money to refund. And if you refund too many, zombie infection could go down.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask Meg and Charlie, from a scare actor point of view, how is this affecting you guys? Obviously zombie infection has kind of stopped a certain amount of streaming. I mean, obviously we don't, give you guys full-time or even part-time work, but it's still contributing to your income and daily lives. What's your aspect and take on the scare industry situation at the moment? Go to Meg first.
So from my perspective, I don't just work for Zombie Infection, I also work for Warsaw Scare Maze. And we did have an Easter event planned, but we had to postpone that for other reasons. And now that Zombie Infection has temporarily stopped events, that was my only source of income at the time. So now I've got no income coming in apart from my student finance every 6 months or so. And I do feel like I love doing it, so it's kind of like I'm missing the thing that I enjoy. I love doing my job. And I'm just missing that, and I'm missing all the people as well.
Yeah, I think
really
Michael hit on a point earlier where he said that we do it for the love of it. We definitely do. I mean, you're never going to become a millionaire, in the scare industry. We do it because we do love it. I think it's going to require all of us as an industry to pull together at Halloween.
Absolutely.
And really celebrate it. And it isn't anybody's fault, and we are all going to have to support each other. And I think it's gonna take an added bit of effort from the people on the ground that are in these mazes and scare mazing to kind of keep the industry alive. We will rebuild, and we will, it will come back. But I think October's going to hit our industry pretty hard, and I think it's only going to be with the support of the scare, the guys that are in the mazes and doing it because they love it. Is the reason why it's going to go ahead.
Yeah, we are still planning for Halloween. The whole event area is getting refurbished. We're going to do a new maze, new concept. What it is yet, no idea, but we are still planning to go ahead.
Yeah.
But I'm just hoping that with enough support from everybody, we'll be able to get our feet back on the ground again.
When
and I hope that for all of the attractions.
Yeah, when I first got the job at Z Events, I was freelancing at the time, I think. So I had sort of part-time freelance contract work in the week. And I remember saying to the event manager at the time, like, I don't care, you don't have to pay me. Just give me the, just let me come along and be a zombie each week, and let me scare and do it as a part-time gig. I think even though the money is a necessity, I don't think it's necessarily the focus of why we do what we do. And I think that's a really key thing. I think a lot of zombie infection staff, of which we have more than 70 now, which is an incredible number.
Amazing.
Of the 70, bearing in mind last year, I think we had a turnover of 150 staff. So I think we saw 150 staff come through our doors and out, and we've ended up with a crop of 70 people that I think would be safe me speaking, saying that they are of the mentality that we're ready to go this October to do whatever it takes to bring us back from the depths. What about yourself, Charlie?
Yeah, it's quite disheartening, like now I have not really anything to do on my weekends, because every weekend I would go and travel around the UK for these events, and now it's kind of like, it feels like a bit like part of my life is kind of gone, and that's kind of scary, because as well, like planning for the kind of future and like trying to think of like, oh, what can we do in the future, it's also kind of gloomed over by this kind of sense of, well, are we going to be able to do that in the future? And it's just kind of really kind of scares you a bit. And, same as Meg, missing out on family, well, Scare family.
The ZI family,
Yeah, it's really tough. But luckily, we've got these social channels that we're able to stay connected with, and share a love of horror still with each other. So thankfully we have them, but it's, it's not the same as being in person.
Yeah, I mean, similar to yourself, Mark. I expect this is sort of you would be travelling around the country every weekend, right? Doing some kind of review or
Absolutely, yeah. We try to get out as much as we can, and it's really weird at the moment not being able to get out there, not being able to support people, and just not being able to go out and have fun.
Tell us more about this virtual escape room you did yesterday.
Unfortunately, that we had broadband issues. That's
Oh
the
no,
broadband at the moment. So
that's a shame.
Hoping to reschedule it the next couple of days. But as I said, the plan is it was going to be like one of those 80s computer games or TV games. You would be controlled a bit like Nightmare, if you remember Nightmare.
I love Nightmare.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan. Yeah, do you know they do a live stage show version?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know Jason Cole from Atmosphere Scare Entertainment was actually on Nightmare?
Was he?
Yeah, I've got the episode. I have to send it
Oh
to
wow,
you.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, no, the
Actually
whole idea
Googling
of you
nightmares.
telling somebody what to do, go to this room, go to that, pick this up, pick that up. Unfortunately, there were some broadband issues today. They were due to launch tonight, though. Unfortunately, they've had to postpone tonight.
That's a shame.
They were sold out. Yeah, they were sold out tonight.
Wow.
They'll get their tech working very soon.
Yeah.
But I know, I'm not going to. Hopefully, they're not going to have a go at me for saying this. I know they've had lots of other escape rooms saying to them, "How are you doing this? Can we talk to you about it? We'd like to do it."
Mm-hmm.
So, and as you know, Greg, that's one of the things about ScareCon and ScareTour. Nearly everybody in this industry is so supportive and helpful, and that's what we always do at ScareCon. So, absolutely, we will be talking about what happened this year at ScareCon when it gets rescheduled, because everyone's had different coping mechanisms and ways to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be interesting to see, if this goes on too long, and knowing how ingenious you can be at times, I can see you trying to come up with some sort of experience, and I don't know how you do it, but the demand's out there, and what we've all got to remember is people are bored.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on lockdown since last Monday because obviously I work for the government, so I was told to stay from home from last week. And I'm bored, but the rest of the family have been on lockdown for 2 days, and we are bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people are looking for stuff to do. I did the ScareTour pub quiz on Friday night.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
100 people playing at one point, and we just announced
that
it
was
last minute.
You are doing another one this weekend, aren't you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
did another one Sunday night,
Plug
7
it.
p.m.
Yeah.
And we have a prize. The prize will be a go in the virtual reality, this virtual zombie, virtual
escape room,
by
yeah.
Escape Room Southend.
Nice.
So, and we're looking to get, obviously to keep interest in the industry going. We're looking to get other people to offer prizes going forward. But the idea is just to get the community talking, get us still thinking about stuff, because you're right when you say we're all going to have to work together to get through this, and we've got to bear in mind that there are people who are suffering because they're not getting, they're not getting their salary or whatever, or they're going to be down. So we've got to be prepared for a subdued turnout this year for the
Yeah.
rest of Halloween. But what we need to do is give people give them the biggest bang for their buck they can get.
Yeah.
And then people remember, oh God, that was worth spending the money on. I really had a good time. I forgot about my worries. I forgot about the shit year that I've had. And I think what this actually means for the industry is, I think next year we are going to absolutely wipe the floor with everything. We'll be recovered. We'll have all got new ideas. Come next year's ScareCon, people will just be buzzing to get this over with and prove that we've got ingenious ideas, clever people.
Yeah.
I actually think some very good ideas are going to come out of this lockdown, because
Yeah.
people are thinking about what they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got more time to think and
Yeah.
come up with these ideas.
I was listening to I'm a big sports fan, and I listen to Talk Sport a lot of the time. And yesterday they were talking about, on Sunday they saw the biggest rise of football manager players that they've ever seen online, because obviously everybody can't go out and watch football, so they're all deciding to take to an ancient game that's been around for ages to play it on Sunday. But one of the concerns was that from one of the guests, I don't think it really stuck too much, but he was saying, is it ever going to overtake, if we do come up with good, you're shaking your head already. Yeah, I agree. But it was one of the points that they were making was, the virtual escape room, you can sit at home and play it from your living room, is that going to outweigh, going and meeting and doing it for real?
What you have to remember is, like going to the theatres, like going to the cinema. We're very tactile people. We're like humans. We like experiences. Yes, we love watching stuff on the telly, but we also love experiencing things. And the beauty of events like your own, scare attractions, escape rooms, is you're not just watching something happen. As you know, like, I mean, so I'm just going to big up your own event. The last zombie infection of yours we did, we got to a point where everyone was asked to make a decision and nobody could decide. So we ended up going two separate ways.
Mm.
I thought we were going to just go the way the whole group went, but no, we had there were two different stories running depending on whether we went with the good guys or bad guys. And I made that decision over who I wanted to go with, and I wasn't just following anyone else. And it's the same with escape rooms and stuff like that. And it's a more active form of entertainment. And I think that's why we enjoy scare attractions, we enjoy zombie events, escape rooms, or whatever, because we've got more control over it. And yes, it'd be fun to do something online, and it will pass the time, but it will never replace the visceral feel of actually running for your life with a zombie chasing behind you.
Agreed.
I've said about your events, I know they're not real. I know your actors are wonderful and they're really nice people, but in that moment, you've suspended disbelief. You're in a believable story, and you genuinely think, oh my God, I've got to get away from these people. They're going to eat my brains.
Yeah. Well, of course, like we're at probably the top of that ladder, aren't we? Because we work in immersive theatre. It's an experience. Experience is in the title of what we do. So we're probably top of that ladder. You go, you watch a football game, but you're not there on the pitch playing. For us, it's even more real, isn't it? Because you have to be there and make those decisions and feel that scare. Yeah, you're never going to get the same jump scare, are you, if you're watching it for a screen? So just to move on then. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, have you ever seen anything like this before in the 20 years experience that you've got? Have you ever seen peaks and troughs in the industry where they've been had a good year, or have we just slowly been on an incline of attractions that are popping up? And
we've slowly been on an incline. I mean, there's always events that come and go. There's I was looking back over some history when I was writing the questions for the for the Sunday night pub quiz. It was like, oh god, yeah, I forgot about that event and I forgot about that one. So there are those that have come and gone and haven't made that much money, or other things have come in the way, or people have had issues where like they've lost a venue. Let's mention like you were at Z Events. I mean, look at how successful Z Events was in Reading, and then they lost the venue. They lost the shopping mall, and once they lost the shopping mall, it was difficult for them to then find something with an equal selling point. So there's always people coming and going, but generally the industry has been growing, been getting bigger. Yes, we see waves of, and we see this every year for the awards. It sort of goes 1 to 2 years static or very little growth, and then you get 1 year where everyone just absolutely went balls to the wall and went really, really, really up their game. And I think last year was a good year for that, and I think even the year before. So there's been a couple of years of really big succession and big growth.
What about the economy? Like, does the economy affect the industry?
The economy does impact the issue, but we haven't had anything major. I mean, the last crash was 20. There's not been while these attractions are going.
What about any trends that like might increase numbers to attractions? So like numbers to Thorpe Park, like if there's a very successful film or horror film or franchise the year before and then the IP gets picked up, or do you see any trends in the industry?
Things like that will always help. I'll be a bit controversial when I say this, but zombies are getting a little bit passé for some people. That's only because Walking Dead has sort of murdered them and taken them, it's basically taken them on a bit too far. But then let's pick on your event. Your event isn't. They're not Walking Dead zombies, but I think there is a little bit of fatigue. There were a few. There was a period, wasn't there, about 3 or 4 years ago, there were lots of zombie events, and then the good ones have stood out, and then some of the poorer ones have sort of drifted into the distance. And we always have a great time at yours, but trend wise, there'll always be times where money might be hard or things might be going on, but when you look at some of the big events like Tully's, that just every year gets another 4,000 or 5,000 extra people than it got the year before. They're on about 60,000 people going through.
Wow.
And that just keeps growing each year. As I say, we haven't had a major market crash. We haven't had a major economy fail.
What about the introduction of escape rooms? What about since they've sort of popped up? Have you seen sort of? I mean, I know you've reviewed a fair amount of escape rooms. Yeah. The introduction of those, do you feel like it's sort of an open door to bigger attractions? So like, are we seeing more numbers at scare parks because people are doing escape rooms and thinking, oh, I like this immersive kind of?
Yeah. I think there is. It's giving people the chance. We've always said, our logo used to be Halloween all year round at ScareTour. And it is giving people the chance to actually do more scare events, do things all throughout the year, and I think it is increasing the demand for different attractions. People do want this more immersive type of experience, and I definitely think escape rooms and zombie events and whatever are building momentum in the industry.
I think we, as a brand, we have focused a lot over the last 18 months or so trying to bring in a new audience. So I think if you're a zombie fan, like you said, or Walking Dead are sort of petering out a little bit, and people know zombie experiences exist. So we've been trying to bring in a new audience, and in our promotional material and our brand material talk less about how scary it is, although it is scary, but more about the immersive theatre part of it and the storytelling of it, to try and persuade maybe that on the fence people that think, no, I couldn't really do it because it's not for me. Just try to push them over the line a little bit to try and get them in, because like you said, zombie events have been around for a long time now, and I think people are getting a little bit savvy to them. However, one of our USPs is also that we have a continuing storyline across the 7 sites. So recently I've seen a lot of guests say, I think it's cool that I can continue the story at a different site, and that pushes them on to maybe buying another ticket for another time and stuff. So, but I think we have to be really clever about the way that we try to push zombie events forward, and the old school.
Yeah, I think it's a different selling point, isn't it? You're not just selling it on, I'll come to our event and be chased by zombies.
Yeah.
And what, as you know, we've always said in our reviews of your events is the storytelling is as strong as the zombie element.
Yeah. I think we focus that.
Yeah. But then there's also, you don't want to push too far on the story element of, you could make the whole thing just a theatrical experience, and you've got people just watching people acting.
Absolutely,
and, you're that good mix of theatrical with some zombies, with some shooting, with a bit of running.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to create a balance. I talk to my guys a lot about creating a balance in all of our events, because some people do just want to come and shoot the hell out of a zombie. Some people are there for the story, some people are there to shoot zombies. So we try to have a balance between action and storytelling, and push forwards that way. So, Charlie, did you have any questions that you wanted to float, Michael? I mean, we've probably got maybe 15 minutes.
Yes. Just before I move on to that, we had a comment from...
I can't hear what Charlie's saying.
He can't hear what you're saying, Charlie. I will relay the question.
Sorry.
Great. There was a comment from Saz in our comments saying about the virus and the lockdown. How is that going to affect like zombie experiences in a sense of too close to home, or kind of like make it more kind of like, like I want to experience it further.
So we had a comment from Saz, who's one of our employees. Lucy's also mentioned this to me about the fact that we are actually going through a quarantine and a virus outbreak at the moment, and how do you think that might affect zombie events moving forwards? Because I know Lucy's like, well, in our experiences, people are going to get used to looking at people in biohazard suits and gas masks. It won't be scary anymore.
It's a good point, and what you have to be careful of is, if this virus does take over as much as they reckon it will, despite all the social distancing and whatever, people are going to know somebody who might have been impacted or affected or died or worked on the front line or whatever. So you've got to be respectful. We don't want to make light of the fact that we're talking about an event where people come back to life because it's zombies and there's a virus or whatever. I think what works quite well with yours is that it's a man-made virus, isn't it? Yours is more, it's more like, without giving too much of your story away, it's not some airborne virus that's come from China.
That would
China virus.
That would be really unlucky.
That would be really unlucky. But I think you've got to be respectful. I think people will like it. You've just, got to bear in mind, we have all lived through it. We have seen people in hazmats. It is going to be slightly closer to home. But it also does give you some very, very good opportunities to be clever with the storytelling, because people know they've had all this talk about how infectious stuff is, and how on washing your hands, and you see all those things that are now being drummed into us on a daily basis. You can get your actors to bring that into part of the story.
That's right.
And I think it could unnerve people. But I don't think, unless obviously someone who loses their mother to it, but it's like any scare, like a lot of people mention about scare attractions. A lot of people talk about London dungeons, talking about, serial killers and rapists and people that have done horrible things, and it's like, unfortunately, the industry that we're in thrives on death and horror,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
You're going to
blood and
cross the
guts.
line at some
Sure.
point, aren't you? Yeah.
We've got to cross the line, but it is difficult. Where do you cross the line? So Jack, London Dungeon is a family attraction. Talks about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know an event in Yorkshire a few years ago launched with 70s wallpaper. The name of their attraction was the House of Sutcliffe. Now, everyone being in Yorkshire, everyone knew Peter Sutcliffe as the Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And that caused an absolute uproar because there were still people alive to this day who were murdered by, or no, they're not alive, but were, our friends or relatives of people who were murdered by the Yorkshire Ripper. So there is a period of distancing, and I think you've just got to be a little bit respectful. But no one's going to really book to come on a zombie event if they have just lost their mother to, a viral disease.
Yeah,
but
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
it's just, being a bit careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have quite a few questions as well from the comments. So I think my questions have been covered pretty much. So another question we've had is how can the different companies in the scare industry pull together to really support each other? And, do you really kind of see this time as a time where we can all, join together with this support and pull through this, hopefully?
Sorry, yes. So Charlie's, me. That's right, Michael Gunn here. So Charlie's just going back to the point about how we can support each other. I think we spoke about that earlier about. I think the thing like the pub quiz on Sunday is a really great way to pull this industry together, and I think you clearly saw that with the numbers. We've had a couple of people mention on the stream about, do you think there'd be any companies that might take advantage of the situation both now and in the future? Are we going to see a scare maze based off of the coronavirus?
Absolutely.
You
Because
reckon? Yeah.
we're human beings. It's been joked about by a number of people, but somebody is going to do a zombie event or a zombie maze, and will mention COVID.
Yeah.
Again, unless thousands of people die. Again, it's that whole thing about being respectful for what's going on, but it's inevitable. Someone's going to mention it.
Yeah. All right, let's finish on a little bit of a lighter note then. So, tell us what your Halloween Halloween prep is like. Then, Michael, when do you start getting ready, and what do you do to get into first gear to start your? Because it must be manic. I mean, it's every day you're somewhere or another.
Yeah, so Halloween prep starts normally virtually as soon as Halloween season's over. So we've got something called the Spreadsheet of Doom, which has got every single attraction and has all their opening dates. So I'm in regular contact with everybody, but I look at a lot of websites and I look to see when people are starting to update their dates. I've already got, for Halloween, I've got 4 different press events already lined up.
Wow.
Because people generally know their press events. And then what we do is we work around it. So if I've got an event up in Lancashire, I then try to work out, well, what else can I do while I'm up there to minimize the amount of traveling? So
you've got like a route map.
We do it as a route map. I try not to, if it's somewhere far away like Newcastle, obviously I live down south, so Newcastle for me is either a 5-hour drive or a flight. So I try and go up there and then do everything I can up there in one go. Same with Yorkshire and whatever. I try to do the furthest away places and then just do a map round, and it changes constantly because you'll suddenly get a new event appear out of nowhere. Or something will get changed, but generally we've got about 5 or 6 fixed points, which are normally the press nights or the big events or something new that's opening, and then we just work stuff around it. And excuse me, I'm married, I've got a daughter, but they don't see me over Halloween. They don't like scary stuff.
Do you have like a big kickoff? Like, is there a big event that sort of is the beginning? This is the beginning. This is the event.
Farmageddon usually do their event really early in the year, so their press night, I think this year is the 12th of September, and that for me that
Wow,
kicks
it's
off
early.
Halloween. Yeah, I mean they don't actually open till the 3rd of November, but I think their 3rd of October, but their press event is the 12th. But then the last 2 years I've been in Amsterdam, once with work and once just with family. And Scare Me in Holland, they open at the end of August, early September.
wow.
So that has been the start of my Halloween, and it really has got to the point, as I said earlier. There's so many other things going on that it's almost like we don't have an off season and an on season. There's
Right.
always, if you look at the ScareTour website, we've done so many events this year already, including we came down to Shepton Mallet to the prison. We've done loads of escape rooms. We've probably done about 20 things already this year.
Wow, that's fantastic. Is that an increase in what you would normally do?
Yeah, I think it is. But the other thing for me is I don't see the point of being a news and review site if you're not going to support people. So we love to support businesses like yourself that we've been to loads of times. But then if a brand new event was opening up, we really try to get to that. Now, obviously, there's myself, and you mentioned Sam earlier. We do a lot of the main reviews, but I've also got Sarah, Laura, Tim, who've been to a number of our events. But I've also got an extended team of about 10 to 15 different reviewers. The problem is, because it's always this face you see on the screen, people always want me to go. But it's like, it's a team of 15 people that decide the Scare Awards. We had the meeting last week. We've got the nominations. They'll be coming out this week.
Exciting.
Yeah, very excited.
That must have been a big decision for you, though, to continue on with this Scar Awards, even though you've postponed ScareCon.
They have to go ahead because they're,
it's seasonal, right?
It's seasonal, and I'm really proud of the fact that people take them so seriously. I mean, I know people who basically won one year at ScareCon and got so drunk that they were just hugging everybody in the room. I don't know who.
I don't know.
Who was that? No, joking.
I don't drink, Michael.
People take them deadly seriously. People use them in their marketing. It's a big badge of honor to say you've won a Scar Award. And it's unfair just because of what's going on. And I do think, and it goes back to what we're saying, I think events are going to have a downturn this year. And it's unfair just because we can't meet that they're not going to get their awards. So we're announcing them as we normally would, the nominations at the end of March. So they'll be in a couple of days' time. And then the night of ScareCon, and this is exclusive, nobody knows this yet. So on the night of ScareCon, we will be doing a live virtual award ceremony. And I'm going to try and get everybody who's nominated to dial in. Or we might even do it that we actually get recorded messages from people. So they're like, you're told that morning
wow.
or something like that. Which would be a nice way of doing it. Say, for example, if it was you, say, right, you can't say anything, but record a message.
Yeah.
And then and the nominees are boom, and the winner is, and I've got the video ready to play.
I remember you did that with the guys down in Australia, didn't you? They recorded a message,
And that's what the Oscars do. If Tom Cruise can't make the Oscars, not that he wouldn't win an Oscar, but yeah, I want to do something like that because everybody wants to market this. Everybody wants to go into the Halloween season with the award about, we did this last year, we did that last year, and it would be unfair because, and again, this hasn't been decided yet, but it is most likely that ScareCon will not happen this year. That it will just go bounced into next year. I can't think of an appropriate time after. We could do it in September just before Halloween. That wouldn't be worthwhile. We could do it just after Halloween, which might be sensible when we normally do the aftershock. But I think we've just got to bite the bullet like a lot of people. I think the economy is going to be so down.
Maybe even if it's just like a smaller kind of just gathering of the scare industry after Halloween, just to bring us all together for once in a year and say, look, we've raised the highlights of what's happened over the October month. And
yeah, well, we do an event called Aftershock anyway each year, and that would be the idea, to make Aftershock a big extra event. But we will announce soon what we're going to do with the ScareCon Awards. But I think it's absolutely vital that those who win get recognised for what they did last year. Their last year's awards but they are great marketing tools, so we're going to go ahead with them.
It's fantastic. I think that's a really good point to
Yeah.
close our discussions. Thank you ever so much, Michael, as always, for everything that you do
Thank
for the
you.
scare industry and keeping us all smiling. Thanks for keeping us up to date with all of the scare attractions across the year. And, you know, fingers crossed that we get to at least celebrate come October with the scare industry.
Absolutely. And don't forget the pub quiz on Saturday night.
Yes, pub quiz.
Yes.
So is that we can follow you across Facebook and Instagram?
Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, it'll all go live up on there. So 7:00, 7:00 Sunday night will be round 2, and there is a prize this time. So
fantastic.
Cool.
Well, we'll be there. Fantastic. All right.
Brilliant.
Thanks ever so much, Michael.
no worries. See you soon.
Thank you everybody for following and listening to this cast. This has been Picking Brains. I'm Greg. That's Charlie, Meg, and Michael. Thank you ever so much. We will see you ever so soon. Stay safe, everybody.